All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Emily. I'm the marketing events coordinator at Meetup, and today we are joined by Anise Davis. She is Meetup's VP of Engineering and LinkedIn Learning Course instructor for a tutorial on how to craft the perfect resume to make you stand out in the competitive tech landscape. We want to help you out during this turbulent times in the tech industry with the layoffs. So she is going to help you make your experiences pop on paper and how to include data to make your case and your resume more marketable for yourselves. I'm just going to go over a few quick guidelines and the agenda. So this event is recorded. You will not appear in the video, and there's also a mute courtesy. Your audio is muted. We can't see or hear you, but we do still want to hear from you through the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So please put your questions there and we will get to them at the end of the event. And closed captioning is also available. To turn it on, just click on the live transcription icon at the bottom of your screen and select your preference. So for today, we're just doing a quick introduction for 5 minutes. And then Anise will go over resume writing for 25 minutes and then a Q&A session at the end for 15 minutes. So thank you so much, Anise, for doing this for us. And I can't wait to see what you have.
Great, thanks, Emily. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Okay. And let's see, I'm going to make sure you all can see the proper screen. Okay, here we go. All right, great, we're screen sharing. So 10 million. That's the number of people in the US who lost their jobs just within a 2-week period when the pandemic started. The result was just a flood of new people all in the job market at the exact same time. However, businesses were also reducing the number of open positions to better cope with the economic hardships brought on by the pandemic. And for you, what could that mean? More competition for the available jobs. Now, if you or your family has been affected by any recent layoffs, let me first just acknowledge that and say that I'm sorry. But I do hope that today's talk can maybe help you, even if it's just in a small way. My aim is to help you to stand out during your next job hunt. Now, as was mentioned, I'm Anise Davis, or Brown Girl Dev on Twitter. I work as VP of Engineering for Meetup. Part of my primary job responsibilities are the recruiting and hiring of engineers. Now, getting your next job is a process, and it all starts with your resume. And so that's what I plan on focusing on today. To help make this talk more practical, I'm going to base it on this fictitious job posting for a mid-level engineer. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing word for word, but here's a quick highlight of the posting. They're looking for someone who can collaborate closely with product and design. You're going to be involved in the user experience, and you also need to be a fast learner who can move quickly. Now, let's see how a job posting should play a large role in how you structure your resume. So let's get into it. First of all, if we think about experience, we can say, look, they're looking for this mid-level engineer that would be maybe like 3 years of experience developing Android applications. Maybe they need someone who's familiar with the latest technologies like Kotlin, Dagger, and Jetpack components. Or they can also work on apps which support multiple Android devices. And then finally, you will need excellent communication and organizational skills. So let's talk about how that resume or the resume review, that very first stage of the funnel, what you can do in order to really compete. Now, typically for a mid-level position, you might be competing with over 200 other applicants. So what's the main goal? You want to market yourself and get an interview. How can you successfully do that? First, make sure you include relevant work projects in your resume. Document what you're familiar with. Keep your bullet points succinct and metrics focused. And then finally, share any relevant links. And we're going to look at each aspect of these recommendations. So let's start with an example. Here we have the resume of Mary Jones. And we'll look at each of these main sections, like the objective, the skills, and the experience, to see how we can really help Mary to stand out with her resume. So let's start with the objective. I would like to work full time as an Android developer. This objective doesn't tell the reviewer anything about Mary that isn't already obvious. Of course, you want to work full time as an Android developer. You applied for this position. We can do so much better. Let's look at this objective. A dedicated and experienced Android developer with proven success in developing high quality user experiences, seeking an opportunity to use my knowledge to collaborate closely with design and backend teams on a meaningful product. Now let's highlight why this worked. First of all, you're including the fact that you're experienced. The job requirements specifically mentioned that they're looking for someone who could collaborate with design and backend. So check, check. Next, you're bringing out these words like proven success, high quality, meaningful product. These are the type of things that will really help your objective to stand out. Now, let's look at the skills section. It's just a long list of expert at this and expert at that. First of all, it goes without saying that you shouldn't lie on your resume. If you're applying for a mid-level position, it's unlikely that you're actually an expert at everything already. What's more, it puts you in a really awkward position when it's time to verify your employment, or even worse, you get the job and you're not able to do the work. So stick with the facts. This is also a much better format. It leaves out the proficiency level because that will be uncovered as you move throughout the rest of the funnel. It's much easier to scan and see that the main job requirements have been met. And third, it just takes up less space on the page. So you can use it for more important things like your work experience. Now, speaking of experience, here's what we have from Mary so far. Improved our test coverage by writing unit tests. Contributed to transforming our app into a multi-module app. Implemented new features and bug fixes. It's pretty boring, and it certainly is not going to stand out to a reviewer. We need to give more. One of the best ways to structure the bullets in your job experience is to use this formula. I accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. Let's see an example. We'll take this first bullet. Contributed to transforming our app into a multi-module app. Instead of this, we can say, transformed our Android application into a multi-module app by introducing dynamic feature modules, which lowered our build times by 35%. Much better. When you're formulating your bullets, you want to make sure you use these words that have power and really grab the reader's attention. Sustained, formalized, launched, orchestrated, spearheaded, transformed, yielded. All of these words will really help the bullets on your resume to stand out. Now, beyond this, you want to include links to relevant sites like GitHub or LinkedIn or your personal blog. Here's an example from someone's GitHub that I really loved, and let's talk about why. GitHub offers a free tool to you known as your profile README. It allows you to customize how you choose to present yourself in the tech community. With minimal time investment, you can have a page for yourself that highlights your interests, skills, and contributions. So if we take a closer look at this one, we see there it's a very friendly introduction with a hi there. We have an emoji. There's links to other external sites like Twitter and their Instagram. They've also included the technologies that they're interested in working on. On the left side, we see he does a plug for the fact that he's a Google developer expert. If you're interested in a developer role, then I highly recommend that you create one of these profile readmes. And as I mentioned, it's available for free. Okay, so before we unveil Mary's updated resume, I want to address the elephant in the room with a few bonus tips. The thing that you likely noticed as soon as you saw her resume was the format. It's confusing. If I were to review this resume, I wouldn't even know where to look at first. And likely it'll be skipped and go directly to the rejected pile. Now, I know that might sound harsh, but it's the truth. When you're competing with hundreds of other candidates for a role, you want to make sure that someone can quickly scan your resume and understand if you meet the job expectations. So let's kind of unpack what's going wrong here. First, it's this profile photo. It kind of jumps out at you and not necessarily in a good way. If you want to include your photo, go for it, but choose something that's less prominent and maybe not so dramatic. Okay, next, it's the formatting. The skills section is placed in a random location next to the objective. This makes it more difficult to read. Just assume someone's going to spend about 60 seconds on your resume. So you don't want to go about adding needless friction to the process. Finally, if you have previous job experience that's not relevant to the job that you're applying for in any way, you don't have to list it on your resume. There's nothing wrong with that, especially in this case. They're looking for 3 years of experience for an Android developer. Mary has that. So she can completely drop this junior accountant position and make space for more meaningful content. This is not illegal. Also, your education. If you've attended a university, a boot camp, completed some online courses, this is the perfect place to include that. It does not have to be the most prominent thing on your resume. Just keep in mind, most resumes should be around 1 page in length, so you don't have to go overboard with all of your accomplishments. But in this case, Mary has completed an Android developer certification, and so it would make complete sense to include that on her resume along with her degree. So that's it. We've completely updated Mary's resume to include the different tips that we've shared. We even went ahead and added her GitHub handle and LinkedIn URL. So if you look at this, it's very easy to scan and read. It has a much better objective. The skills that Mary possesses, it's obvious. And then the bullets for her experience really grab your attention. I especially like that we say, I developed our cross-platform application, and there's a link to that application. So these are the types of things that you can do to make sure that your resume really stands out and you can make it to the next stage of the funnel. So think about it. Which of these tips can you apply to your resume right now? Just take a few moments, think of something, jot it down, make a to-do for yourself so that you don't forget to follow up. Is it the profile photo? Is it some strange formatting? Maybe your bullets are boring and don't provide enough information. Perhaps you have a certification and you didn't include it. These are things that can really help you when you're trying to look for your next position. So, if you really want to stand out during the resume review phase, make sure you cover the requirements in the job posting. For some people, I even recommend that they create a unique resume for every position that they're interested in applying to. This way, they can tweak some of the details in the language to make sure that they're mimicking what they've seen in the job posting. Use those action verbs and metrics like yielded and spearheaded and transformed. And then make sure you include a meaningful metric on what you did. Maybe you helped improve the app rating. Maybe you improved the performance time of the website. Whatever it is that you did, make sure you document what you did, how you did it, and then the impact. Next, include links to your GitHub, maybe your personal README, and any published applications. We saw that wonderful example of that profile README from GitHub. This is something that really helps this particular person, if they were looking for a new position, to stand out among the many hundreds of other candidates who may be applying for the job. Also, keep the formatting simple and easy to read. This is not a work of art, so you don't have to go full on creative, very fancy, dramatic, overly stylistic. You want them to be able to look at your resume within 30 seconds, know that you can qualify for this position. If you do these things, you'll be well on your way to the next stage of the hiring funnel, and you can look forward to finding your next gig in tech. So thank you very much, and I hope these tips were helpful for you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what questions you have for me to help you improve your resume.
Thank you, Anise. That was so helpful, so practical, and kind of made me realize, and hopefully other people, resumes don't have to be as intimidating or scary as some people make it seem to be. So before we get into Q&A, we have a bunch, but I just want to share one slide. 1 second. So we have a new offering that we'd like to share, and I'll let you, Anise, share a little bit more about this.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. So this is so exciting for me. We are offering 2 free months of Member Plus. Member Plus will really help you to sort of stand out on the Meetup platform. These are some of the benefits. You can get notified of upcoming events before everyone else. You also get a special Member Plus badge that shows up on your profile, as well as when you do RSVP for events. And you get a little nice customized app icon, if that's your thing, that you can use on your mobile phone. We're extending this offer to members who have been impacted by layoffs, or you're in the tech industry and you're really looking to network. You can use the code Tech for Good, and this will give you 2 months free of Member Plus. So please take advantage of this offer. We'll be sharing a link, as well as here's a QR code. You can just take out your phone right now and scan it to take advantage of this wonderful offer of Member Plus.
I'm just going to give everybody 1 second to do that. Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this. It's very helpful. So everybody out there, be sure to scan the QR code. All right, let's see. Let's check out some Q&A questions. All right, we got one from Anonymous. They asked, what is the best way to market and quantify cybersecurity skills / accomplishments on your resume when some of them fall under NDAs?
Okay, that's a great question. I had a friend who referred to people who had to work under NDA as like the dark developers, because they weren't able to be like as public and out and open with their technical accomplishments. And so what I recommend for people who fall into this category, look at the job postings. So normally, let's say I want to apply for a particular job, I'll go and I'll grab like 3 to 5 job postings in that category. And then I'll look at the different requirements that they've listed. And so even if you can't get into specific detail about what you did under NDA, you can list some of the more generic items that are in the job postings. And then that will kind of help you and help others to understand that, okay, you do know, at least you're speaking the lingo, you're familiar with what's happening in that particular tech space. And then if you end up going to making it to the interview round, maybe you can share some more details, but obviously you want to respect your NDA.
Very helpful. Thank you. Susan asks, I have heard conflicting advice regarding an objective. Some say yes, some say no. It appears that you support the idea of an objective, correct?
Yes, I do. The reason why I support it is it's something that's unique to you if you do it that way. Like if you're gonna do the original Mary Jones version of the objective, then maybe no, skip it. If it's just like, I would like a job that pays me money, that's not a great objective. That's gonna do you more harm than good. But if you can find something really exciting and unique about you, and then you can connect that to the job, then yes, absolutely. Everything that you can do to help give you just like that slight edge among the other candidates, do it.
Mhm. That's a great tip. You want to stand out. Maria asks, does GitHub work for business analysts working on tech projects?
Anyone can have a free GitHub profile. If you are a business analyst, it might be interesting to try something like maybe Medium or a place where you can just sort of write for free and share some examples of the type of analysis that you perform without obviously sharing any company secrets. But for example, I might say you could write a blog post like investigating churn among tenured members or something, and then talk about your steps on how you go about investigating it and throw some charts and tables in there. Like kind of keep it generic, but it's also showing off your skill set. And then you could include a link to your Medium on your resume as well. So it's not only for people who are like writing code.
That's good to know. Amanda asks, as a major career shift with little to no experience in the field, little to no experience in the field I want, how do I show that my 20 years of experience actually does have some significant crossover skills without distraction from where I'm trying to go?
Okay. So
There's
there's
a
a lot there. Okay, there's a lot there, Amanda, but I would say look at your previous job experience and you want to find things that align with where you're trying to go and show the impact of your work. So once again, you want to use that formula for showing the impact of your work. So if I have no idea what your previous experience was, but let's say you were a teacher and you want to enter the tech space. Part of what you saw in that one job posting was about communication skills. So you can talk about your excellent communication skills and how you've created curriculum that was used by 100 students and it led to the results of such and such and such. Like you kind of play up what you do know and what you have done with the impact, and if possible connect some wording to what you see in the job posting. Like that's always the key. Try to hit at least a few points from the job posting.
Yeah, even if it seems like it's a very drastic change, I feel like a lot of skills kind of go hand in hand, and you could transfer that into something different. So
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
someone else asked, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, Pikurin. Um, Read your comments about not including unrelated prior jobs. What about if you're career changing and don't have related experience? Kind of like the last question.
Yeah, then you need to include it. Yeah, then you do need to include your prior jobs. In the example, the fictitious example of Mary Jones, she already had previous work that allowed her to meet the requirements of the job posting. So just throwing in the fact that like, also I used to be a McDonald's cashier, like it's not really contributing anything and it's just taking up space in your resume. So if that's not the case, then of course, yes, please include relevant job history. I think the point I wanted to bring out there is that it's not some legal document where you have to include every single job that you've ever had. That's not the job of your resume. So just like I want people's eyes to be open to that, because I'll see like 3, 4 page resumes where they list every single job they ever had. And it's not necessary, it's not helpful.
Yeah. I know a few people who I've talked to and they're like, "Oh, my resume is so good. It's 4 pages." I'm like, "That's not always a good thing." Another person asked, "Is a profile picture necessary?
No.
Why would you just choose put one because you want to, or is there a specific reason?"
Yeah, if you want to, maybe if for some reason you're applying for a unique position where someone seeing what you look like could, be in your favor. Okay, like if I was a fashion model, I would guess I would have to put a profile picture for the so they could see me. Or if I was, I don't know, something where it relied on my looks, then maybe I would put a profile picture. Or you're just like devastatingly handsome, and you know that if you put your picture, you're more likely to get to the interview phase. I have no idea. Sure, put your profile picture, but in most cases, it is not necessary.
If the hiring manager is really that interested, they can also look up your LinkedIn and see what you look like.
Right.
Um, Someone asked, "What do you do if there's a gap in your employment?"
Yeah, so I don't address it unless they ask me during the interview phase. So there's no need to call out on your resume like laid off or took a break or on vacation, parenting for 2, 3 years. Just put your relevant work experience along with relevant bullets and impact that can show what you're capable of doing, and then have a great conversation about it later during the interview phase. It's not something that I feel you need to address in your resume.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point. That could somehow, turn people away if they see a gap, but you could have very good reason for it. And if you had to explain that, then, you know,
Exactly. Yeah, assume, like I said, assume maybe someone's looking at this for 30 seconds. They're looking for keywords that jump out. If I have 200 resumes to go through, I'm not like sitting down like March 2017. Uh-oh, I see
do
a
the
2 month gap, failure. It's just like a really kind of scan. Okay, cool. Next, next. So if you have that mindset, you will just understand sort of the process that's happening. Even many companies use an automated way of processing resumes. So it's not even a person. The computer is just scanning to make sure the keywords are there, and then boom, next. So I wouldn't worry so much if you have gaps.
I have actually a question going back to the profile picture. If a company's using the automated scanner, will the profile picture mess that up? I know sometimes I've heard not to have too much on your resume, like too busy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I see more people with profile photos these days, so I would assume that the software has accounted for it. But yeah, that's a great point. You never know what kind of software they're using, if they're using automated to process the resume. So you just want to be able to have not boring, but very like sort of predictable formatting of your resume.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We got a question from D. They asked, "Do we have to include our address on our resume?"
No.
What I know recently I've heard that's been a shift. And now you're just supposed to put what, like your email on there or phone number or something?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll say no. For one reason, okay, it's space that's taken up by the address that you don't necessarily need. And when they need your address, they will be able to get that information from you. Also, maybe you want to wow them during the interview and talk about the fact that you'll need relocation later instead of like putting that out there right on your resume, very first thing. So just kind of be mindful that what is the goal of your resume? Is to market yourself and get you an interview. You really gonna have to show up during that interview phase, but don't get put out of the game from the very beginning with the way that you've structured your resume.
Mhm. Very true. Let's see. Lab asked, what was the equation you mentioned to formulate or to format the bulletin point?
Yeah, so also I'll see if I can share my slides. I don't mind sharing my slides. So it's like I accomplished X by as measured by Y by doing Z. So accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. And I will definitely see maybe in the event chat or something, I can leave a link to the slides for people who are interested.
Yeah, I think you should be able to do that.
Okay,
And we're also going to have a recap and recording of this event, so
that's
it'll
right. Yes.
be on the blog. So if anybody needs to look back on it, we'll have it there. Mary asked how to present my work experience in my resume as a person returning to work after being home for 5 years.
Yeah, so this is kind of similar to the previous question where the person was saying they had the gap in their resume. I would say put your relevant work history, relevant work bullets, impact, and then when you're there on the interview, because yes, we're going to get to the interview, then you can explain what you were doing with that time if they ask you.
Mhm. Someone asked if I have a decade plus of experience from diverse industries, how can I show that as a positive to potential hiring managers?
Okay, from diverse industries. I think it would depend on the role also. It depends on the role that you're applying to, and then just showing how like your interests are varied, and then what is it that you've learned from each of the different industries. Like there's something unique in each. Like if you were in aerospace, and then you were in fintech, and then you were doing something with healthcare. In each industry, there was something unique, and you hopefully made an impact. You learned some new skills, and then you can appreciate something else, either in the tech space or whatever position you're applying for. So I would look at it as like, this is a bonus. Like, how many, for example, how many engineers do you know that have worked in aerospace, fintech, and healthcare? Like, I've been familiar with all of those domains. I've worked in like these 5 different programming languages because of it. I've worked in different types of software development teams and structures. And so I'm just such a flexible person. And if that's something the company is looking for, great. Like you're really standing out because they need a person who is flexible. I can learn new things and I can pick up new domains really quickly. So it's actually a positive if you depending on the role that you're applying for.
Yeah, you can kind of take it as the perspective of it just kind of gives you more knowledge to share with people. And have a
Exactly.
diverse background is not necessarily a bad thing.
Not at all. Not at all.
Anonymous asks, sorry, I just lost my spot. Do I have to describe about my previous projects in my resume?
Do you have to? No, you don't have to, but maybe you should. It depends on what the project is. You may want to talk about that in your resume, especially if you worked on something that relates to the job posting requirements and you were able to have like a quantifiable impact on the business or the project. As I mentioned, like I improved the build speeds, I improved our app ratings, I was part of $1 million startup initiative. Whatever it is, you should definitely include that in your resume if it's going to help you to stand out and show that you not only maybe meet the job requirements, maybe you exceed in some way.
Mhm. So say you have all this experience and it's just getting like overwhelming on your resume. If you want to narrow it down, you should just look at the job description and pretty much.
It's all about the job description. Yeah, it's all for me, it's all about the job description. I remember a while ago, I was applying for jobs and I wasn't exactly sure. Like, I was sort of like, maybe I want to be a manager, but then maybe I want to be an individual contributor. So I had different variations of my resume that highlight the aspects that I worked on, which are towards more individual contributor versus things that were more focused on engineering management. And so, even though it's the same exact job that I was working at, the bullets were different, the impact that I shared was different. And so that's something you want to think about based on the job posting. So it's really all about the role and the job posting.
Mhm. That's another good point that you brought up, that it's okay to have multiple resumes, and sometimes you even should.
Definitely, 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 definitely. Like,
Yeah.
it's so you would spend the extra time, right? But if one, you don't have a job and you're looking for a job, it's worth it financially. If you're trying to move to maybe from some other industry to a more lucrative one, it's worth it. If you're looking to make some 20K more in a new job, oh no, I had to make 5 different variations of my resume. I'm sure that's worth the 20K extra per year. So just kind of think about it from that perspective that, okay, maybe you have to have multiple resumes stored somewhere and you have to tweak them for each job posting. But in the end, financially, it was worth it for you to put forth that extra effort.
Mhm. Yeah. It's good to bring that up because I was never taught to have multiple. And at one point I did, and I showed it to someone and like very negatively. They were like, why would you have multiple? I was like, I heard somewhere I should.
Hey, maybe have Chat GPT write that for you.
Study asks, what are your thoughts on cover letters?
I still like cover letters. I feel like cover letters are that little extra something that you can give. Just as an example, I think we still have time for this very short story. So when I was applying for Meetup, I am like, okay, Meetup, how can I have a story for Meetup? Oh, that's right. When I was living abroad, my husband couldn't find people to play basketball with, and I'm like, hey, have you tried Meetup? He goes, Meetup? And next thing you know, he's like riding his bike all over Amsterdam playing basketball with strangers and having a grand old time. And so that's kind of like my meetup story. Did that help me get the job here? I don't know, but maybe. So if you have a story that can help connect you with the company and kind of explain why the company, why you two would be a good fit for each other, why not? Like I said, just it's just that little extra something that can maybe help you stand out among the other hundreds of applicants.
I'm sure it helped you. Being able to show that you actually use Meetup, and like for other people out there, being able to show that you have experience with whatever company you're applying to, I think is
Absolutely.
a step up. Anonymous asks, um, will omitting some irrelevant positions raise questions about my gaps in employment?
It depends on the job. It definitely depends on the job that you're applying for. I think as you move up to more senior roles, no, it doesn't. And if you can show, like, if they have a specific requirement, like we require 7 years experience with blank, and you can show from the jobs that you have included that you have that number of years of experience, then you should be able to make it past the resume phase. Now, if you actually get hired, just to put this out there, normally most companies do a background check and they have you fill in all your jobs and they're in the address and who's a reference and like they do a thorough vetting of you and your past employment history. That is not the job of your resume. I just want to be clear. The job is to market yourself and get an interview. That is the job of your resume. So keep telling yourself that, and then you'll less beholden to, oh, historically, I put my whole address, I put my marriage status, I put my high school, what my GPA was. Like, you don't have to include tons of irrelevant information that will not help you to adequately market yourself and get an interview.
Like you said, you don't, it's not a legal document. You're not going to be held anything against you
Right.
for not including something. We got time for, I think, about 2 more questions. So let's see. Anonymous asks, when should you go to 2 pages on a resume? Do you have a rule of thumb? Yeah, pretty much. When should you know when to extend it past 1 page?
For the most part, I think people with maybe like 15, 20 years of experience or more might make sense to have 2 pages in their resume. But less than that, I would still choose what I'm putting in to be less than 1 page. It's obviously not a hard set rule because it really depends on the job that you're applying for and your relevant work experience.
All right, one last question. Anonymous asks, this is interesting. How important is a LinkedIn profile in today's market?
I think it's important to have a LinkedIn profile. I do think people look into your LinkedIn profile, if not just to see who you're connected with in your previous jobs. Like if they're really interested in you and they might say like, oh, I'm also connected to this person that knows them. And they might try to like reach out behind the scenes and ask questions about you. So I do think it's important to have a LinkedIn profile, which means like clean your LinkedIn profile up, put relevant bullet points on your LinkedIn profile for your previous jobs. Drop jobs that, like, as I mentioned, you don't have to put every, like maybe retail service job if it's not relevant to where you're going right now. Include the certifications, maybe get people to endorse you for some skills. Like use your LinkedIn profile to your advantage because you'll also be able to get incoming requests from recruiters who are basically just using it as a giant search engine to see if you tick some boxes. So why not include those things on your LinkedIn?
Yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes I look up people on LinkedIn and if I don't find them, I'm like so surprised. I'm like, what happened
Are
to
they real?
LinkedIn? All right, so we have just 1 minute left. So thank you so much, Anise, for doing this for us and sharing all of your tips. I think it was very helpful. Hopefully everybody else got something from this and we can land some jobs for some people. So I'm just going to share one quick last slide before we go. So we have a podcast, Keep Connected, with Meetup CEO David Siegel. He talks with Meetup organizers as well as thought leaders in community and connection. So if you want to check it out, please scan this QR code and give it a listen. You can also subscribe at meetuppodcast.com. I highly recommend it. And as a reminder, you can also view a recap of this event in a few days on our Community Matters blog at meetup.com/blog. So thank you again for everybody who joined us, and hopefully you learned a lot.